It's time for a round of concert stories, and where better to start than Slayer. On the second wave of Slayer's farewell tour in 2019, they were playing Raleigh, North Carolina. Ministry was an opening band, so I was hoping to meet Al Jorgensen that night after the show. Slayer's performance reeked of, "We're retiring soon, so whatever." But Primus, Ministry, and Phil Anselmo and the Illegals all did a fantastic job. I found the tour buses after the show, behind a gate with security watching. So me and two other guys waited a few hours by the gate to see if anyone would come out of the tour buses. The two guys were friends, one of them much older than the other. The older guy had a BC Rich guitar with him that he claimed used to belong to Kerry King. He told a story about how Kerry gave the guitar to a friend of his, and it somehow ended up in his possession. Well, despite it being cold, we waited for hours. The only person from Ministry we saw was Sen Karen walking past us. We exchanged hellos and he kept walking towards the buses. Eventually the guy struck up a conversation with a crew member who walked past us wondering why we were waiting around. They talked for a good while, and the guy told the roadie about Kerry's guitar and that he was hoping to have it signed by the band. Well, the roadie took the guitar and brought it in the venue where the band was. A few minutes later, he came back with the guitar. Everybody in Slayer signed this guitar except for Paul, who apparently wasn't into autographing anything. And when the roadie told Kerry about the guitar's story, Kerry said, "Well, that's probably not true, but I'll sign it anyway." The roadie also gave us guitar picks that were designed for that tour. I was extremely happy about the guitar picks, but the guy who got the guitar was ecstatic. I was happier for him than I was for myself. We finally parted ways in the wee hours of the morning. And as for Ministry, I would eventually meet Al Jorgensen at the Melodic Virtue Ministry book signing over a month later. Sometimes it's cool to finally meet your heroes. While we're on the topic of guitar picks, the moral of this story is that bands often play with different picks from the signature picks they throw to the crowd during the show. GWAR, Toxic Holocaust, Sacred Reich, and Against the Grain were playing Atlanta in September 2019. It was an excellent show. Toxic Holocaust and Sacred Reich just put out new albums, and GWAR came out and splattered everybody in typical GWAR fashion. It was glorious. Some guitar picks were thrown during and after the show, but the masquerade can be a little dark when you're trying to catch guitar picks. Once everyone started clearing out after the show, myself and a few other people were searching the floor for any picks we might have missed. Looking for guitar picks on a GWAR-soaked floor is a fool's mission, but I found one. I found a green guitar pick that had no band marking on it, but there was a design on one side. As I was leaving, I ran into Joey from Sacred Reich. I told him he did an awesome job and he was nice enough to get me a guitar pick. I showed him the green pick and asked him if he knew who played it. He didn't know. As someone who collects guitar picks, I had to solve this mystery. I sent messages to the bands asking about it, and no one knew, not even the crew knew. But then I did an Instagram post asking if anyone else had one like it. Lo and behold, Brent Purgason from GWAR said it was his. For a band like GWAR, you'd think they'd only use custom signature picks. But many guitarists just buy signature picks to throw out to fans after the show, and they play with other stuff, like green Dunlops. But I have a GWAR guitar pick in my scrapbook now. Another time at the masquerade, me and my then girlfriend went to see Swallow the Sun. For later reference, this show happened on the day before my birthday. There's a parking lot next to the masquerade that we used to be able to pay cash at the entrance to park. This time they had us download a phone app so we could pay online. The app asked for a license plate number, and I got out and read it out loud for her to type it in and pay it on her phone. It was paid for, and then we went in and had a great time. Swallow the Sun is so emotional. They did just have a new album out. So, we got out, close to midnight, and started walking towards the car. It looked a little weird from a distance, and then when we got closer, it had a boot on the tire. I called the number on the sticker demanding they come take it off because we paid for the space. The guy on the other line was like, "Whoa, slow your roll, buddy, we'll be out there soon." Easy for him to say slow your roll when it's so late out and I have to deal with complete bullshit. So we waited in the car for about 20 minutes. It was now after midnight and I turned 26. I had family members calling me, texting me, and sending me money on PayPal. I should be happy, especially after seeing a great metal band, but I wasn't happy. The parking guy finally pulled up next to us. I told my girlfriend, hey look, don't lose your shit unless I do it first. Let's just try to get out of this. The guy got out of his car, probably about my age, and he had a GoPro strapped to his chest. Suddenly, I thought of all the threats and rage he probably had to deal with on a constant basis, so I stayed calm just for him. We explained the situation and showed him our receipt, and he scratched his head. He looked on his computer, but he didn't see any matching license plate numbers. Then he hit us with, "Oh, you got one letter wrong when you typed it in. That's why we booted you. Let me call my boss and see if we can get the fine reduced." Firmly but politely, I said, we shouldn't have to pay anything since we already paid to park here. But he insisted he'd do his best for us. We waited while he called his boss. My opinion on the guy himself was neutral. He was only doing his job. He got off the phone with his boss, who said, "Well, since they already paid to park, don't charge them the full $70 fine. Reduce it to $50. I thought, are you serious? So I looked at my girlfriend, who made the typo, and she was like, "Oh, I don't have any money to pay it." Guess who had to use the birthday money I just got to get the boot off the car? I paid the man and I said, "Your whole organization is full of criminals." My girlfriend giggled at it and I was like, "That's not funny." I mean, here I was fixing her screw up. But anyway, we got the boot off the car and I started driving home. We were pissed. I was mad at her because I had to fix her mistake, but I was even more mad at the parking company because they wouldn't let us slide over one letter. I mean, come on, this was the only red Honda in the parking lot. That was how my 26th birthday began. I had the Joan Jett song, "Too Bad on Your Birthday," playing on the radio, and I screamed along, "Too bad on my birthday!" I forgave her once we stopped at a gas station and I got some Mountain Dew in me. But still, parking in Atlanta sucks. The Masquerade in Atlanta had Slaughterque in 2019. It was a metal festival with food, games, and a lot of bands. The primary reasons to go were Exodus and Exhorder, who'd both be playing at the end of the night. Slaughterque was fun, though there were bouts of boredom when it came to skipping bands that I didn't care about. Then Battlecross didn't start right away because of the technical issues with the bass amp. The singer was making dickish jokes about the bass player and I shouted, "I'm walking," and left. Exhorder brought their A game. The new album, More Than Southern Skies, just came out, so it was the first time I got to hear My Time being played live. It was also nice to see the guitar that I'd helped build for Vinny. Marzi was happy to see me too, especially after I gifted him a joint that I snuck in. He was a giant pot smoker at the time, and if you're a touring musician who gets high, trusted resources are welcome. Exodus didn't have Gary Holt with them, but it was still as violent as ever. After the show, Vinny said Exodus was just like they were when he saw them at a place in New Orleans called Jimmy's in the late 1980s, just with fewer injuries. I even congratulated him on the new album, since it was Exhorder's first album since 1992. He said the biggest thing for him was that when the final mixes were submitted to Nuclear Blast after many revisions, they weren't his songs anymore. They were out in the open for everybody. It was getting late. He had disappeared somewhere in the venue, but I said goodbye to Kyle and started walking out. There's a bridge connecting the venue and the parking garage next to it, and below this bridge was where bands parked their tour buses. I was walking behind a group of Vinny's friends. He saw us all from below and waved us down. I went a different way from the rest of them and got there a minute before they did. I just wanted to say goodbye to Vinny and leave, but he wasn't around, so I waited. Then, some guy who worked for the venue came up and said, "Are you part of the band or crew?" I guess crew, unofficially. "Well, let me see your pass." "I don't have one. Vinny just called us down here." "Who?" "Vinny. He was just here." "Vernie?" "Vinny! From Exhorder. He just saw us walking up there and called us down here to talk." "Well, the band's not here. They left." "What do you mean they left? They were just here." "No, they left." I was visibly pissed with this guy and I said, "Well, do you know where they went?" "Back to their hotel." I'm detecting bullshit because there was no need for a hotel. There was a giant tour bus 10 feet away. But the guy says, "Well, I can't let you hang around here without a pass." So I walked a few feet into the alley out of his sight, but I'm not leaving yet. Now I had to say goodbye to Vinny, despite what this guy was doing. Vinny's other friends finally came around, and then the guy started harassing them. I overheard them give the same story that I told him, and he threatened to call security to have them escorted away. And they said, "Well, call them then, we're not leaving." They waited by the ramp, and I went to join them. Vinny finally came out of the venue, and of course it was after midnight and that motherfucker was wearing sunglasses. But someone in the group said, "Hey, you ought to talk to your boy over there, he's giving us a hard time." And right in front of the guy, Vinny said, "Oh, he's an asshole, and has been all night." The guy didn't say shit. A funny postscript to that story, the GWAR show that I mentioned earlier with the green guitar pick was happening the next night. And as security was patting us down, that guy who gave me a hard time was right there at the entrance. We locked eyes for a minute, but we didn't say anything. I walked past him and enjoyed a great GWAR show that night. When you're buying goods and services on money apps, you have to make sure to click goods and services. Anyone who insists that you pay with the friends and family option, and they're not friends and family, they're likely to scam you. I learned this the hard way. Alice Cooper was coming to Charlotte, and a friend and I were going together. A day before the show, somebody on the internet wanted $50 for a floor ticket, which I thought was reasonable. It didn't sound too good to be true considering what Ticketmaster was charging. And he said to PayPal him with the friends and family option enabled. I paid him and didn't hear back from him for a couple of hours. He responded later with, "Hey, I'm driving. I'll send you the ticket when I get home." I said okay. The next day, I still didn't have the ticket. So I was messaging him throughout the day, "Hey, I need that ticket." I get to the show and I say, "Hey, I'm at the show, where's the ticket?" Radio silence. I was screwed. But no way was I going to miss this show. The box office had reasonably priced tickets in the balcony section, which was actually not a bad view. The next day, the guy blocked me. I tried to open a case with PayPal, and they said, "Well, because you clicked friends and family, we can't do anything about it." I wished I could have met that guy in person, just so I could have kicked him in the balls. My last story is about a choosing beggar. A guy I used to talk to was doing business with Morbid Angel, so he got 3 free tickets to give to friends when Morbid Angel came to Charlotte. Charlotte was 2 hours away from me. I paid for my Morbid Angel ticket by buying Sharpies so we could all get autographs. But one of the friends who got a ticket had their car break down, so he couldn't drive to the show. Gas prices went up that month, and my truck at the time got 12 to the gallon. Keep in mind this was 2 hours to get there and 2 hours back. And since we lived in the same town, I called him up and offered him a ride. A few minutes later I said, "Hey look, it'd be cool if you threw in $10 to help with gas because it's gotten ridiculous lately." Now, you might ask why I'd ask for money if I was going there anyway, but it was the basis of the relationship. We weren't exactly friends. And his mood changed dramatically. What? $10? But I might want to buy a beer or a shirt or something." "Well, why don't you drink before the show?" "Well, I don't have that much money, man." I mean, this was a guy in his 30s who complained about money, but spent everything he had on weed. Anyway, he was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna call up some friends an hour away and have them pick me up and drive me to the show." "But we live in the same town, and we're going to the same place." "Well, I might want to get something to eat." "Why don't you eat at home, or I could bring you to McDonald's, they have the value menu." "I'm a grown man, I have to eat to survive." A few more minutes continued of his whining, and then I finally interrupted him. "Dude, you're getting into the show for free." Anyway, the show happened. He wasn't ready when I told him I'd be there, of course, and at the end of the night, I pulled into the driveway to drop him off. He said, "Wait here a minute." He went into his house and came back out with a $5 bill. He said he'd have the other $5 the next time he saw me. I never saw that other $5. Needless to say, that was the last time I ever offered to give him a ride anywhere. That friend who gave him the free ticket also tried to sell him a ticket to the upcoming obituary show, as his band would be opening for them, and his band would be able to keep $2 of each ticket sale. The choosing beggar said, "Oh, I'm just going to talk to Ken and try to get on the guest list." Oh, they started arguing over that boy. "Oh, well, Ken let me into the last 3 or 4 obituary shows." "Exactly, so this time buy a goddamn ticket." Don't abuse your guest list privileges, folks. Anyway, thank you for listening to these stories, and grind on.